Hello, fellow bugs. Welcome to Purple Tick, in a series about lessons learned in the journey of my project car Miata, specifically what to and not to do. This series starts with me having no knowledge of cars or working on them, to eventually building race engines, custom wiring harnesses, doing engine swaps, and even doing a rebuild title process on this car and others. For more details on what I have done and learned since, smash that bell, subscribe, eat some grass, like, and comment. Let me know what you would like to see more of. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy. And yeah, I ended up putting an oil cooler inside, and you can see the horns that I had installed, a new condenser, and I have the oil cooler there all wired up to the engine, and it goes to the oil pump, the oil cooler distribution plate here, whatever. And I actually had to go through different versions of this because I didn't want to set up an oil cooler that would just the regular one, which just lets the oil through with no regard to temperature, because then the engine's always going to be too cool, and it's really a balance of keeping the engine and vehicle operating always at the right temperature. And if you do that, it's always going to be too cool, and you're not going to get the mileage out of your engine that you would want, because it's all got to be a good temperature. So I got this thermostat one here, and I would also say that I would not recommend doing this level of mods like the oil cooler and this, and I would just keep it normal, or at least at minimum have the original oil cooler, which is the one that goes that uses coolant. The problem with those is if you ever blow an engine, or if the engine has previously been blown, sometimes metal gets in there and it's not coming out, and that can ruin the next engine that you decide to work on. And here you can see some of the routing of the oil cooling pipes and how I was cutting them and installing them. This is my first time working with AN fittings. Here's the engine back together, and I switched the race land, or the racing beat headers that I had. I gave them to my friend, and I got these OBX headers because I really couldn't deal with the fiberglass anymore, and they were having some fitment issues with my car. And here's a video of it, how it sounds with the OBX headers. Here's a video, or pictures and videos of how it looks like at night with the lights on. This is exactly what my vision was, of having the lights shine. It looks really mean and aggressive at night. And this is what it looks like when it flashes. You can see this when the hazards are on, and you see the corners in here flashing. And this is when you push the brake in. And when you put the reverse in, it's very bright. This is with the Skunkto manifold installed. This was a nightmare to install. I would just not recommend it. I would just recommend the regular stock one that I had earlier. I had cut everything from it, and it was so good. And this one really gives me some issues fitment wise, but it's whatever. I like how it looks. I will say that like all the bolts and everything on it rusted, so that's something to look out for. Replace it with stainless steel or something. And then I had some other ideas for other mods, so I went to the junkyard and I started doing research on electric power steering, right? And one of the things I started looking at is that you can do a DIY, or you can buy that. I think there's like $1,000 kit that you buy the electric power steering rack, and it comes with the whole kit, really ready plug and play for your Miata. And I didn't really want to do that, so I went to the junkyard. I spent like $50, and I got this Miata steering rack from the '96 Miata that was there. And then I got this electric power steering rack from I think it was a Saturn View or something like that. And as well as I also got another the steering rack for, or steering column, I mean, for the Miata as well. And yeah, so you get to more than that. And then this is kind of a heartbreaking moment right here. I was driving, and some guy, I don't know, he just crushed into me. I was driving on the right lane. I was getting off the highway, and he just completely sideswiped me, sent me flying off the road. And I landed where the car is now, and yeah, completely totaled it. Totaled the whole door, totaled the quarter panel, this whole side of the car was destroyed. And you can see it broke my wheel and everything. And It's another view of what it looks like. And I had to go ahead and so to kind of start this process, this was an absolute nightmare, and I can speak on this whole process if you guys ask. I dealt with the insurance with the other guy when this happened. I had to deal with the officers. I had to deal with what's it called? The insurance was an absolute nightmare because they really just wanted to total the car, and they wanted me to go to these the estimators and stuff, and I dealt with that, and they estimated I think $5,000 worth of damages on my car, and it was all the guy's fault. So he admitted to it, and the insurance sided with me and everything. So either way, I was either gonna get a settlement or I was gonna get the car fixed from them, and I really didn't want to shop to fix a car, but I mean it wouldn't have been an option because they considered it totaled, so they were able to write off the car. And I fought for this because I didn't want the car to be totaled, because then it's a salvage title, and it did become a salvage title because I think I accepted the settlement for like $8,000. And what I did was, while I'm going through this process, I'm thinking 10 steps ahead, right? I do research, I ask questions, I ask people, and I came up with a solution. While this is going, I went to the junkyard, literally as like the same process doing the estimations and stuff, and I got this door and fender for like $50 together, right? And these are from the 96 that I was getting those parts from, and I went home and I took the panels off, and yeah, you can see how bad the door was. And I kind of like the aesthetic of how the door looked, and I probably would have liked to keep it looking like that, maybe. I kind of liked how it looked, but at least I learned a lot in the process of fixing and cleaning up the car. So yeah, I kind of took off the old bent side skirt and the corner flare that was all scuffed up. Luckily it wasn't broken. This is the old door. It was fully destroyed, and it actually opened and closed just fine. The problem was that the locking mechanism was stuck shut, so I had to pry it off to get the door to even open. And I remember when the accident happened, I had glass all over me because the windshields shattered and exploded on me. I'm just happy I didn't have my arm sticking out the window, because I would have lost my arm. So yeah, so I watched videos and I researched like doing the quarter panel swaps, and I'm like, okay, this looks pretty intense. Like, this is next level body work, being able to cut and weld. And I've never really welded before. I usually had a friend just help me weld sometimes. So I figured, this is my time to shine. I'm gonna learn how to fucking weld this quarter panel on. So I went ahead, I started cutting into it, like cutting all the bad part, and you can see like it was pretty dented before right there. And I went ahead and I started cutting that part with just a regular cheap angle grinder, and I cut it out. You can see here, kind of inside the wheel, like I even dented the arch right here, and this is kind of what it looked like before I started cutting. And I started first using the stud gun that I showed earlier to kind of pull as much as I could out first, see what is salvageable. But it turned out not much, so I went ahead, I used tape to mark off how much quarter panel I actually have to work with first, to kind of know what my limits are, like how far I can go back and fixing and stuff with this specific quarter panel. Because yeah, this one I think was like $20, right? But if I get a quarter panel kit online, like a patch kit, it comes out to like 150 I think, for just a blank that you can put on here. But this one worked perfectly. I would recommend whoever has any similar issues uses something like this. Yeah, so I quickly painted the door, the fender that I had bought, or the fender, I did go and I bought a fender from somebody. I had to drive an hour and a half to go pick it up, but it was like $50, so I got it. And then I painted the door and I painted the fender very quickly, and this is all within a couple days from each other, and it came out really good. And I put them on, and you can kind of see like it's already taken up a lot of shape, and it's only been a couple days. So then, while I'm kind of waiting and dealing with the insurance, I go ahead and I start fixing or working on kind of my electric power steering conversion. And I first wanted to take the rack, and this is what I made it look like. I made that rack that I got from the junkyard. This is the final output of that. I cleaned it all up. Did a ultrasonic cleaner with an ultrasonic machine that I bought, and I have a funny story for how I bought that I can share in another video. but I tapped where all the pipes normally go for the power steering, and I plugged them all with brass inserts. And here's a view of what it looked like all done without the plugs and hoses and stuff. This is what it looked like before. You can see a bunch of the hoses going everywhere for the power steering system. And what I did was I took it apart, and no one really says this, but the 96 and 97 I think have a different steering rack. It's a different manufacturer. And it makes it really difficult because all the videos you see online and stuff, they don't have this opening mechanism here. This one's like press fit in. The other one's you just untwist it and it pops right out. This one, not so much. You have to push this one out with a press. So I had my friend help me push it out with the press, with a hydraulic press, and I was able to take it out, take off all the mechanism, all the parts, absolutely everything. I took the main cylinder and I used the grinder that I have to cut off the nubs right here that used to feed the hoses for the power steering, and then I just quickly welded them with the welder I bought. I got like this titanium something from Harbor Freight. It was like $400, and it's an amazing welder. I can do a MIG and I can do aluminum MIG, and it's really good. I have gas connected to it as well for aluminum. But yeah, this is the ultrasonic cleaner I bought. I was cleaning all the parts separately. I really wanted to make sure I did a good job with the electric power steering and the power steering rack conversion. And then this whole part right here is just manual power steering, manual power rack conversion. So I took that shaft here, and there's a thing inside here where it has a little space that lets this wobble a little bit for play, so the hydraulic fluid can go in there. And when you do the manual one, you can leave it as is, but you get a slight wobble in your steering. So I didn't want that, so I welded it shut myself. I had to tape out everything because I didn't want any of the little slag or anything getting on any of these components, because they're all kind of bearing surfaces. And I welded them, and then I grinded it down, and this is what it ended up looking like. It's good enough, it works. And then here's all my parts laid out, cleaned, all perfect. And I took the head here, and I tapped and plugged them all. And then I just assembled it with a lot of red grease, and yeah, I put it all together, and this is what the final output was, and it worked perfectly.
And this should do it for this episode. Stay tuned for next week's episode. Purple Tick out.